Transparency is what allowed Wanderu to survive the pandemic. Usually during a recession, what happens is that people travel less. When they travel, they tend to want to go for cheaper options or travel to places that are closer.
Welcome to our podcast at Temi. Temi is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Today we've got with us our incredible guest, Arnaud Lucas, CTO of Wanderu. Arnaud, hi, how are you doing?
Good, and you?
Everything's great, thank you. And before we start talking about Wanderu, can you please share with us a little bit your experience? You also worked previously in the travel industry, I believe in TripAdvisor. Is it somehow correlate with what you are doing currently in Wanderu?
Yeah, it's correlates because it's the same industry, but it's very different at the same time, right? Because the business models are different between the two. And ultimately, the company size is very different. Like TripAdvisor, even when I joined, was much bigger than where Wanderu is right now, in terms of people. So some similarities for sure, but different focus, different business model, and effectively different company size.
Got it. And Wanderu is a travel booking platform. So how it actually work? How do you integrate with all these public transportation services, and where do you operate?
Yeah, so Wanderu is the leader in being able for users to search and find ability to use ground transportation. The way that Wanderu works is by asking users going from point A to point B, and based on that, proposing different options across carriers and mode of transportation to get them there where they want to go, and to give them the choices for them to select and be able to book accordingly. So that means that we have a lot of integrations with carriers of different kinds, bus and trains mostly. More than and we have hundreds or more than hundreds of carriers on our platform as a result that we integrate in real time, so that when user decide, yes, I want to book, there is we can book right there on Wanderu, and people receive their tickets right away, effectively.
And I believe Wanderu is a company from Boston, right? And where you currently where from you currently working in? I believe that remote work is not a problem in Wanderu, right?
That's correct. Wanderu was founded in Boston and used to have offices in Boston. With COVID, Wanderu decided for all kind of reasons actually to let go of their offices. At this point, the company is remote only. And so meaning that there is no office, everybody is working from home effectively, and the attachment to Boston is really more the having a mailbox in that area.
Well, that's actually a really interesting case. So because of COVID, the team is currently completely distributed, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Our team is, however, across the US time zones. But yes, we have some people in the Boston area. I'm one of them. But I will not say we have a majority of people in Boston by far. At this point, everybody is across the US time zones.
How do you deal with this, with the time difference? Someone need to get up a bit early and...
Yes, I mean, ultimately we promote flexible hours anyway, in terms of work. We do try to strive for having a certain window where we can have meetings as a team, so that, and we set that expectation with the team so that people know to be available within a certain window that's favorable between the West Coast and the East Coast. But other than that, people do their job when they want to. As long as the job is getting done, that's totally cool by us. So, but in terms of collaboration, you're right. It does limit the window, and we have to take care of that. But up to now, at least, because there is, between the West Coast and the East Coast, there is some difference, but not that much difference. I think it has been working fine.
I got it. And I believe you joined Wanderu only 6 months ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how does it actually happen? Because usually, as a CTO, you care about culture fit, and you select software engineers, and you accept if they will work in your team. In this case, it looks like it happened in opposite way, right? So how did you test that entire team, and how did you make a decision that this team has a proper culture, and what is proper culture for you?
That's a good question. I think it comes back to during the interview process for me. It was really to assess, the culture, but more importantly, the core values of the company. And everybody in there, I had the opportunity to meet many of the engineers and the executive at the company before joining. So that helped a lot, right? Yeah, because I could not just check on a couple of data points, but across a large spectrum. But one thing, so multiple core values, but one of the big ones for me is transparency. And I really felt like that I could see transparency through the interview process. And not only that, but I truly believe, but that's my own perception, that transparency is what allowed Wanderu to survive the pandemic. Right? So, because when you're in the travel industry and 95% of your booking disappear overnight, it's really by being transparent with the team about, hey, this is what's happening and this is the context, so that each team member is empowered to do the right thing based on their own knowledge and domain and everything. I think it's what ultimately enabled Wanderu not just to survive, but thrive during those difficult times. And so that resiliency, I think, comes from that to some extent. So for me, that was a very important core value that I wanted to find, right here, because ability to take feedback, ability to get feedback, ability to ingest good information and not that good information, be able to relay not that good information, like bad news cannot wait effectively. I think it's critical for a business to survive, right? That's the only way that you can make sure that you can do the right thing and take the right actions across the board.
How big is your tech team? I believe it's about 32 employees work in the company.
So actually the company is actually not that big, right? So the company at this point, I think it's a bit more than 25 people, if don't quote me on that, because it changes every day. But the tech team is around half of that, a little bit more than half. So we are a small team. We used to be much smaller when I started. Right? So one of the things I did was to hire more people because we really were having, we just had a big need, right, to be able to grow. So increasing capacity and expertise in different areas was critical. And then we did a lot of that up to now. But yeah, it's funny because it's because of COVID, effectively, the company shrunk, and the engineering team as well. And we're back to trying to grow it, but grow it in a sustainable way, right? Making sure that Wanderu is self-funding, and so be able to make sure that we hire within our means has been part of the plan, effectively.
Well, nevertheless, it's still maybe about 15 people of engineers, right? And how do is it critical for you to get feedback of feedback sessions with them regularly? How do you handle? Is it critical to you to speak with each of team member frequently?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Communication is important for sure, right? Yeah, especially when somebody like me, when I'm fairly new still to the company, be able to learn and understand what's good, what's bad, what can I do? I think it's critical. So I like to meet with I meet actually with each and every engineer, even my skip, at least once every 2 weeks, so on a one-on-one basis. So I do that systematically. And otherwise, we have different type of, I call it ceremonies, but meetings really, to understand how well we are doing as a team and be able to discuss that openly. Like the sprint retrospective is a big part of that, but there are additional meetings that we do to discuss some of that as well, depending on the domain and topic at hand. Right, we have engineering knowledge share, we have lunch and learn, we have and we do this, the things called strategy meeting on a quarterly basis, and we plan together. So there are a bunch of opportunities for people to voice opinions and in a way that's actionable and we can actually do something about. So which for me is important, right? Not just about complaining for the sake of complaining, but it's like, great, well, what do we do to fix it? And so that's what we do.
How do you manage projects? Is it more or less agile approach?
Yes. So we do 2-week sprints. Effectively, we have that's the thing. Agile are a set of principles. So and I truly believe that yes, we're definitely driving delivery based on those principles. That's every company is slightly different how they apply agile, and that's on purpose because it's but we're mostly a Scrum type company, effectively, if I had to categorize that. But it's evolving, right? We keep on changing, and that's okay. That's the way it should be.
Right, got it. And you're saying a very interesting thing. You're training and mentoring the engineers to be versatile across the different stacks. It's a pretty interesting because there is a strong belief at some circles that people need to be specialized, and this is in the most efficient way. So how do you explain what you're doing?
Yeah, so it's don't take it the wrong way. It's more to have what we call a T-shaped engineer, meaning that people are expert in a certain area, yes, and I agree with having that expertise. But also, if they need to, they can stretch. They have depth of knowledge, but they have enough breadth of knowledge as well. And the point of doing that is that not very rarely projects are only touching one piece of the stack. Right? A front-end project, maybe 80% is a front-end project, but there is always that 20% that you have to tweak the API, change something on the back end, make a database query, whatever you need to do. And having to wait for somebody else and prioritizing somebody else's work so that that person can actually unblock that person, I think these are expensive handoffs. And if a person has enough breadth to be able to do that around with support from the other engineers too, right? It doesn't mean that they are doing the vacuum, but there is this other expert on the back end, on the API, on mobile that can tell them, that can at least review their code, give them some pointers so that they can unblock themselves. I think it's important. So for me, I see it more as a team. People can do different things across the stack, but there is this area of expertise and where people can support each other based on their area of expertise, effectively. So that's what I like to promote.
Yeah, it's a good point. If you're a backend engineer, you also need to be able to do an API, whatever, or maybe work on the front end.
Exactly. And it's not like we're asking them to do anything super complicated on the front. In that case, yes, we need a front-end engineer that knows a lot about how to do front-end, but it doesn't mean that they cannot touch it. It doesn't mean that they cannot do it well because they can still get support effectively from a front-end expert on our team. I think the point is having enough expertise depth across the team, and then each engineer having some range of breadth so that they can be dangerous in different areas.
Right. And which technologies actually do you currently use in Wanderu?
So, our technology stack is fairly common actually, and so on purpose, I would say. Our front-end web is React Redux. We have mobile apps that use Swift and Kotlin. So iOS and Android. The REST API, we have a REST API that all clients, web and app, go through to access the backend. And the backend is a set of microservices running on Kubernetes, written mostly in Python. And then on the upside is on AWS, we use Kubernetes, we use Terraform, and so that we have this infrastructure as code. And then we have a data lake, a data warehouse that's on top of Snowflake, effectively.
So all this technology stack already probably was chosen even before you came to the company?
Yes, I didn't make any choices there. Yeah, at this point, there is opportunity to optimize, I would say, somewhat what we have been doing, especially on the infrastructure side. So that's something that we have started now doing more. And same thing, everything can always be better, right? So we're keeping on evolving and improving across the stack. For example, on front end, we're looking at we're actually now working on introducing Next.js for different reasons, and Jamstack. So that's, and on the outside, we're moving to EKS. So anyway, things are changing all the time, but yes, fundamentally our stack is not changing for now.
Stack is currently pretty common. Maybe instead of Python, we would use Java because we really love Java and React Redux.
Yeah, my background is in Java. That's true. That's if I have to pick a language at this point, it will not be Java. It will be more like Kotlin, but it's just me. At this point, you know what? Python is working just fine. It is. There is no. That's not where the problem is for now. That's not where the biggest optimization is at this point.
Right. What is the biggest technical challenge you've faced in Wanderu so far?
I think the biggest technical challenge is the fact that the team is so small compared to the footprint that we have. Right? Wanderu is actually, a very successful company, and Wanderu is not new. Right? Wanderu is 9 years old. And so a lot of things have been built over time, and that thing is actually pretty good, just to be clear, right? They are not anything bad, but they were built with having a bigger team in mind to be able to support that footprint, and a bigger team that we don't have right now. So that means that a lot of the work that we have been doing is more to optimize our footprint so that we need less people to be able to manage it. Let's just put it this way. And that was back then, that was the right decision, right? Because it's always a trade-off, right? How much do you focus on a lot of the automation side, for example, versus how much do you focus on business project and so on. And I think the fact that today the system is actually pretty scalable and all that is a good testament to what has been done. But at this point, we're like, well, but it is a big footprint to keep the lights on, and we need to optimize that for the team size that we have now. And so that has been one of our priorities, definitely.
I got it. And let's probably speak a little bit about the future. How do you think the travel industry would be changed in the next 5 years?
I'm not an expert on that side. The big question that people have been asking is more like, well, it looks like we're going into a recession. So how will the travel industry fare in a recession? All right. So I'll change the question a bit based on that. And the truth is that it's always difficult to tell, but at the same time, usually during a recession, what happens is that people travel less, right? Because some travel you have to do, but some travel, like vacation or whatever, I was like, well, okay, I can just stay closer to home, and that's fine. So people travel less. But when they travel, they tend to want to go for cheaper options or travel to places that are closer. So usually I will argue the first industry that gets impacting are flights, right? Because airlines, because people always say, well, I could go to this big trip to Europe, or I can just drive 3 hours to Vermont. And one is going to be definitely cheaper than the other. So, and I think that's where Wanderu fares very well, because during a recession, while the overall volume of travel kind of shrinks, the people do tend to move towards transportation of different kind. And that's exactly what Wanderu offering is. So we tend to fare very well during a recession. And I don't expect that to be differently this time. It is true, though, that we expect a recession coming, and that will have an impact on the overall travel industry, but most likely not that much on Wanderu. And at least we're not seeing that in the numbers at this point. So.
Okay, then. Well, Arnaud, thank you so much for this wonderful interview. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.